is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome, everybody. Greg Peterson coming to you from the Urban Farm. Sorry about the delay. We're still trying to figure out GoToWebinar. I really appreciate you coming on and listening to our great content this evening. I am coming to you from the Urban Farm in the heart of Phoenix, Arizona. And today we're presenting 3 simple steps to grow fruits and veggies for a healthier life. I'm excited that you're here, and I am joined today by Kari Spencer, a master gardener, master farmer, and urban farming instructor. Welcome, Kari.
Thank you, Greg.
Absolutely. Together we're going to share how you can grow your own superior fruits, veggies, greens, and herbs right in your own yard, either front yard or backyard, or porch, or sunny windowsill. This is really going to make a positive impact on the nutritional, physical, and financial health of your family. Today we're going to take most of the guesswork out of the process so you can be successful right out of the box. Whether you are a beginner or a seasoned gardener, if you have land or just a balcony, this webinar is for you. In today's webinar, you're going to learn how to find the right place for your garden, to select the right plant at the right time, why soil is your most important garden asset, and we have some amazing gardening hacks for successful growing. With what you'll learn today, you'll be able to get started growing your own food. So grab a pencil, make sure you have your workbook handy, take notes, and begin creating your garden plan. And that's the workbook we sent out to you in the email earlier today. And I think can we post that link in the chat box? We'll get that there too. I really want to thank you, Kari, for being willing to share and co-create this journey of ours. And with that, let's jump in.
It's my pleasure to be here today. And tonight we're going to discover how to grow groceries right in your own yard. And so this is going to help you to improve your family's health. And if you do it right, you can save money on food, reduce your environmental impact, and I think probably the most important benefit of all is to enjoy better tasting food.
Oh my gosh.
That is free of chemicals and pesticides and other things that are hiding in commercially produced food.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Does this sound like you? I want to know that I am feeding my family healthy food.
Sounds like me.
I want food security and autonomy from the industrial food system.
Yep.
And I want to know what is in my food.
Absolutely.
If that's you, then you are definitely in the right place today, because we're going to all learn together how to be growitarians.
Oh my gosh. You know, one of the things I love about you, Kari and I have worked together for about 5 years now. She's always creating magic. So this is a word that you created, right?
Yes, I did. I got ideas from other places, like, well, just the words that we use for things, how we eat, like vegetarianism, or, you know,
yeah,
there's so many ways to eat. And when I was thinking about how I wanted to eat and was researching ways to live healthier and be healthier, it was really confusing to me, all the different ways that we could eat and all the conflicting information.
Oh, yeah.
So what I decided is just to be a growitarian. And that means that I am going to eat things that I am growing in my own yard and producing in my own kitchen, and also sharing some things with neighbors and buying things from local farms, but mostly what I am producing. And I eat something out of my yard every single day, and I believe that that is a very healthy way to live and to eat. It's also very satisfying.
Oh, big time. Big time. So if you stick around till the end, very last slide, I have a special gift for you. It's called my Healthy Soil Hacked video series. And we're going to talk about soil tonight, absolutely. But I, as an urban farmer, think the biggest job of other gardeners and urban farmers is to create healthy soil. So I created this series of videos on different unique ways to help you do that. So I've got that bonus for you at the very end of the webinar, so stick around for that.
We'll also be taking some questions at the end.
Yep.
So what are we going to learn today? Well, for beginners, we're going to find the right space for our garden.
Oh, yeah.
So that can be one of the things that really slows us down when we're trying to get a garden started, is just picking where to put it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about how to select the right plant at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
and why soil is your most important garden asset.
Oh, big time.
And also, we've got some great gardening hacks for you. So when we come to a screen that has a little icon that says gardening hacks,
Mm-hmm.
these are things that can help you to get growing successfully right away, very quickly. And so you can make some notes in your workbook on the notes page concerning those gardening hacks if you like.
Oh, look at the picture of you.
So this is me a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
I grew up gardening with my grandparents and my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they did most of the work. I just got to wander around and pick peas and raspberries and dig in the dirt. But I loved that lifestyle. And I did learn a lot about growing. But when we first bought our home in Phoenix, I decided that I wanted to let my kids have that experience. And so I turned over some dirt in the backyard and planted a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For about 2 days?
For about 2 days,
Yeah.
right. Because I didn't know what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you just stuck things in the ground and they grew.
Yeah.
And that can be true, but in Phoenix it's certainly not. And so I realized that, I better get some learning and figure this thing out. I knew people could do it because I saw food growing all around the valley. So I got in contact with the Master Gardeners and took the Master Gardener program.
Right.
And then I had the opportunity to come to your farm and take a tour, and I learned some things from you. And it really inspired me to give it another shot. So in 2010, we started our second garden. It was not fantastic, but we did get some things to eat out of it.
Is that part of your harvest here?
Yes, the picture here is my children showing off some of the things that we grew, and just that little bit of success gave me the motivation to keep trying. And over the years, I've learned how to do this with a lot of hard knocks, and took a lot of classes and figured it out. So now it's 2016, and we have 19 gardens on our property.
Is that all?
Well, we have other things there too, chickens and so forth. But 19 gardens, 11 of them are placed strategically in the front yard.
How cool is that?
Well, I think it's really cool, because one of the passions that I've developed over the years as I've learned how to grow is sharing that information with other people.
Yep.
I know how frustrating it was when I got started, and I want to help people to learn how to grow food, because so many people want to do this now. So I just invited people to come and grow with me in those 11 garden boxes, and we have a group of people who come around every Monday night, and we enjoy each other's company. We plant seeds together, we harvest produce and share it, and we share our lives. And it really is my hope that each and every one of them will go home and start a garden in their front yard and share with their neighbors, and this lifestyle could go viral.
Let's hope.
Let's hope so.
Let's hope. I always wondered why you couldn't teach classes on Monday nights.
Well, that's why, because that garden club is really important.
Nice, absolutely. So yes, this is a picture of me in 1975. And that was when I had my first recollection of something being wrong with, number one, the way we were living on the planet, and number two, how we were eating on the planet. So in that year, I was in the 8th grade, and I wrote a paper. I still have that paper somewhere, by the way. Back then it was on lined tan paper, like with blue lines on it, in pencil. I hand wrote in pencil, and the paper was about how we were overfishing the oceans.
Wow.
Still to this day, I have no idea how that happened. It just was. So I've lived with this thought of there's something not quite right for, guess what, it's 41 years now. And so fast forward to 1991, and I had a couple of big realizations. And if you know me, you know that I tell everybody to go read this book called Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. It's a conversation between a gorilla and a man, and the gorilla is the teacher. And so it is a work of fiction, although it really parallels the last 10,000 years of our existence on the planet and what we've done around food and how we've really come to dominate the food space on this planet. So I tell people you either love it or you'll hate it, but it will change your life. So go check out that book, by Daniel Quinn. It's a book called Ishmael, and he's got like 14 books he's written along the way. And the other thing that happened in 1991, I discovered this notion of permaculture. And I like to call permaculture the art and science of working with nature. How do we work in the flow? How do we take the natural systems that are out there and plug them in to the spaces where we live? And that's a big part of what I do here at the Urban Farm is I plug in those systems. So I've got a third of an acre here at the Urban Farm, and so that's 80 feet wide and 160 feet deep. It's about 14,000 square feet. And pretty much every corner of the space is covered with food or supporting food on the property. And on any given week, I'm probably putting about 2, maybe 3 hours. If I get really lucky, I get to put 10 or 12 hours a week in the yard, because that's my place where I go for respite from the technology. But it's gotten to a place here at the Urban Farm, I put enough of these permaculture principles in place that permaculture is handling the space. I don't have to. So really what there is for me to do is go with the flow and harvest. I'm just harvesting the abundance that's already here.
Well, that is fantastic. And if you look around the farm here, it is overwhelming how much food is growing here in two hours a week of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's exciting.
Yeah, that's exciting, and it comes from me putting these permaculture pieces in place. And so it's a learning. I've learned it and then implemented it. So I'm really excited about this. Ocean Robbins has been on my radar for a while, and I would call him an acquaintance at this point. He runs the Food Revolution Network. And for about the past 4 years, I've sent him, about once or twice a year, I send him an email. Hey, I'm doing this work out here. Hey, pay attention to what I'm doing, because I really want him to see it. And about 6 months ago, we started chatting, and I just asked him if he had anything to say about what we were up to. And this is what he said. And so I'm really excited about this, that the work that we're doing is getting out in the world. And I particularly like this. Greg Peterson and the Urban Farm U team will show you how to garden. They make it easy, they make it fun, and they'll help you succeed. And I know for myself, I'm deeply committed to that.
I am too, and that is really great coming from Ocean, because he's doing some amazing work in the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. So our commitment to you, and we're deeply committed to this, is teaching you how to free yourself from the disconnected nature of our industrial food system.
We are also committed to helping you take control of your health, to connect with the earth, and to foster a more enriching life by growing your own life-nurturing food.
Life-nurturing food, there you go. So at Urban Farm U, we provide the inspiration, the knowledge, and tools that help you promote and encourage healthy lives and environments so that you can pursue your goals and dreams with a community of people who care. And that's really what we're here for. We're here to spread the word. One of my projects that I took on about 5 or 6 years ago is called 10,000 Urban Farms in Phoenix. And that came from a conversation that I had with my buddy Scott Murray over in California one day. And we started talking about what ifs. And my what if on the way back from California on that drive was, what if there was a farm, an urban farm on every street in Phoenix? So I just did some quick math and called it 10,000. And that's what I encourage people to do. And grow food on your block and share it.
That could change things.
Big time.
For the better, for sure. All right, so what is growing food all about? Well, today we're here to talk about growing organic food.
Nice.
But once upon a time, all food was organic. Yep. No label was needed to signify that the food was organic, because before we had all of the chemicals and other mechanical and technical means that we use to grow food, we just looked to nature and we copied what nature did, and we grew food in our gardens just by doing it the way that nature did it for eons before us.
Imagine that.
So that's what this is all about, learning to grow organically, and it is very, very easy to do. The first step is deciding where to grow, and this can cause some inertia. I know when I started my garden that there were some moments where I was really unsure. Am I putting this in the right place? And so if these questions resonate with you, they sure did with me. Do you dream of growing an organic garden but aren't sure how to get started? Do you hesitate to start a garden for fear of making a mistake? Or perhaps you started a garden but it didn't go as well as you had hoped or expected, and you want to find out how to improve it. I can answer yes to all of these.
I've done all three of them.
Questions.
In fact, I still have dreams of gardens that I want to put here at the house after 27 years.
Yes, always, always doing that. And so this section about garden placement is just to help you to gain the confidence and give you some tools that will empower you to decide where to put that garden so you can do it strategically. And, you know, if you make a mistake, so what? It's all right. Nothing is undoable.
Right.
But by doing the things that we're going to talk about today, you can give yourself a real head start and a better chance of placing that garden in a really good location.
Yeah.
And the first step is just simple observation. Take some time to go and wander around your yard with a notepad and just notice things.
Yeah.
You will discover things that you never knew were there, even if you've lived in your home for years. And so this will really help you to confidently and strategically site your garden. And then over time, as you continue to be observant, it will help you to understand your space better. And then you can make appropriate adjustments and improve your gardening skills over time. So observation is really key.
So this is taken right out of a permaculture workbook, right?
It is a very important principle of permaculture. Everything starts with observation.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that I want to suggest is for people to pay attention to where the sun's at during different times of the year.
Oh,
as
yes.
an observation.
Yeah. During different times of the day, during the different seasons, because things change dramatically from week to week sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? So go out and observe at different times and seasons. And we'll talk about some of the things that you might want to make note of, okay, as we go through the presentation.
In a couple slides, yeah.
Sure. So the first concept I want to discuss in terms of deciding where to place your garden is zone design. And this sounds technical, but it's really just simple.
Yeah, it's not.
It's just planning the placement of elements in your design, and that could be anything from the trees and plants to even animals in your yard and structures to make the most efficient use of energy. Energy in the form of free natural energy, the sun, water, wind. These are things that just appear on our properties without our help. And we can make really good use of that free energy. But also you have your own personal human energy as well. And there's only so much of it. And we don't want our gardens and our properties to drain us. We want them to be nurturing and life-sustaining to us. And so if we can place things to make use of our own energy, then it can be something that is fun to do and not overwhelming or taxing to us. Gardening does not have to be hard.
That's for sure.
So when we're talking about zones, we are simply referring to areas around our home. And you could think of this as like concentric circles, like a target with your house in the middle and the rings of the target going out, separate zones. But that's not really how real life works. Nothing is perfectly circular or square, is it? So, zones can be really shaped any way you want them to be. Zone 0 is your home. That's where you live. That's, you know, your ground base. Zone 1 is the areas around the perimeter of your house and places that you visit daily. Your driveway, your mailbox, maybe you have a front porch that you go sit on every day, or a back patio. This might be the place where you want to put your kitchen garden. Things that you pick and eat every day, put those close to the house.
Yeah.
That way you can go collect them more easily, and you'll see when things are ripe and ready for harvest, and you will also see if problems start to arise so that you can take care of them very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And a perfect example of this is here at the urban farm. I have a loquat tree. That's a tree fruit, and it's a soft flesh fruit like an apricot. And I put it right next to the driveway. That's in zone 1 on purpose because it's not ripe for very long on the tree. So I put it in zone 1 so that I drive by it every day when I'm pulling it out of the driveway so I can see when it's ripe. I would never put that in the back part of the yard out of my eyes, out of my eyesight, because then I'd miss the harvest. So that's a practical application of using a zone and using a zone 1.
Right. Also, we have chickens on our property, so we consider the egg nesting boxes where we go collect eggs every day as zone 1.
Yeah.
Because we have to go there every day, so we try to make that as easy as possible.
Yep.
Zone 2 is an area a little bit further away from your home that you visit often, but you don't need to visit it every single day, like compost bins. I go out every couple of days to take scraps out, but I'm not out there every single day. I don't go into my chicken run every single day, just every few days to check out what's going on and make sure it's clean. Then there's zone 3, and these are areas that you might visit weekly or even maybe a little less. Put things there that don't need to be tended to all the time, like bees.
Yep.
They really don't want you around all the time, right? But you do need to check on them once in a while, so you don't need to have them right next to the house, but easily accessible still in that zone 3. Zone 4 is for pasture and for growing crops like grains that need a lot of space. Maybe corn could go in a zone 4. And then zone 5 are areas that we leave wild, natural, and that is important. Even if you have a small space, not everyone has room for a zone 5, but even on an urban lot, we can have a zone 5. I know you do.
Yeah, on my 14,000 square feet, I have the back right part of my backyard. I pretty much let it be.
And why do you do that?
Just so that it brings in pollinators, and magic happens in that zone 5. I did learn a lesson recently. I put a couple of acerola cherries back there, and they're essentially in a zone 5, and I get out there maybe twice a year, and they didn't make it because they needed more attention than what they got out in a zone 5.
Okay, so even those of us who have been around a while still make mistakes, and that's okay. That's okay. So how do these zones look like in real life? Well, here's a real life aerial view of a property. And so you can see how the zone 1 is not a perfect square or circle. It's kind of an amoeba shape. And it includes the kitchen garden out in the front yard, where they probably have some herbs and onions and things that they use a lot in that area. It also includes their nesting box in the backyards. They can collect those eggs every day and probably feed their chickens too every day. And then their zone 2 is a little bit further away from the house. Zone 3, it moves a little bit farther away, and you can see how this might work in a real life situation.
Yeah, and what I would do in zone 4 and 5 on this picture is that's where, and it looks like this is probably the case, that's where the chickens would run. They can pick up any leftover fruit, they can eat weeds, they can eat bugs, they fertilize the ground. They do all these magical things. I tell people, I'm a big believer, if you have any dirt, any backyard, you need to get chickens.
Yeah, they're great helpers in the garden, and wouldn't this be an oasis for them as well?
Gosh,
it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that leads us to our first garden hack. Nice. What if you only have zone 0? Can you grow food? What if you just have a sunny window or a balcony?
Yeah.
Can you grow food? Absolutely.
Yeah.
What if you can't dig in the dirt because you're not physically able? Can you grow food? Yes,
Yeah,
yes, grow
absolutely.
something in a container.
Yeah.
Pretty much anything that we grow in the ground, we can grow in a nice big container pot. And I tried this with some dirt in my backyard,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that didn't go so well.
Ah.
And I learned that growing food in containers is a little bit different from growing food in the ground, but not terribly different.
Uh-huh.
There are just a few things that we need to know to be successful. And the first thing is to start with a non-toxic container. There's a lot of ideas on Pinterest for growing food
Uh-huh.
in all kinds of different containers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very artful. But some containers might not be appropriate for growing food. For example, tires, old tires, they might be wonderful for growing flowers, but they might leach some things into the soil that we really don't want around food. Same thing with pallets. Pallets oftentimes have some chemical things to flame retardants and pesticides,
exactly.
and so those might not be a healthy situation for food, or a gas can might not be a great choice.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Put a flower in that and reserve containers for non-toxic containers for growing food. Just a cheap clay pot from the nursery is one of your best bets.
Mm-hmm.
And make it nice and big so that it can house a vegetable, because vegetables can get very, very large.
Oh, yeah.
If the container does not have a drainage hole,
Mm-hmm.
add one, drill one if necessary, because container plants can get waterlogged very easily,
Yep.
and they can also get salt buildups from the water into the soil. And so we want to make sure that those pots can drain so that we don't drown our plants.
Yeah.
Fill it with an organic potting mix and a starter plant. So soil from my backyard was not appropriate because it doesn't contain a lot of the things that container plants need, and potting mix
Mm-hmm.
does.
Yeah.
And so if you put a potting mix into the pot, your plants will fare a whole lot better. And, your starter plant, you can start with a transplant if you want an instant garden.
Mm-hmm.
You can always do seeds too, but I kind of like to use the transplants for containers.
Yep.
Then water thoroughly, but only when the top few inches of soil are dry. So you plant it, you get it really wet, and then you don't water it again until the top few inches feel dry when you
Mm-hmm.
stick your finger down into
Yeah.
the soil.
It's really important because you can kill a plant probably more quickly if you're overwatering it than if you're underwatering it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a common occurrence. And also, if they stay too wet, they can get those little gnats that fly around.
Oh, yes, of course.
Especially for plants that are indoors.
Mm-hmm.
So just stick your finger in the soil. If it feels relatively dry, then go ahead and water. But if it's still wet and cool, then refrain and come back tomorrow and try again.
Yeah.
If you just have a sunny window, a great thing to start with is a pot of herbs.
Mm-hmm.
Herbs are one of the most expensive items to buy in the grocery store fresh.
Yep.
And they are one of the easiest things to grow.
Absolutely, hands down.
They do not like to be fertilized. They do not like to be overwatered.
Mm-hmm.
They thrive on some benign neglect. You got to water them once in a while.
Yep.
And you're going to want to cut them regularly because they grow better when you're harvesting a little bit here and a little bit there. And so it's great to have some herbs in a sunny window. They can live on that amount of sun. They don't need to be in bright, full sun to thrive. And, the cost of obtaining a few herb transplants and potting them up, it's about the same cost as buying those herbs in the store, but then you have them for an entire season. And when it gets to the end of the season, you could harvest the whole plant and dry it and have them all year long.
Yeah.
And that would get you through until the next time you plant.
Yeah. When Heidi and I go to San Diego for vacation in the summertime, we always stop at a nursery, get an organic basil plant. We use that for our basil for the week, and then I bring it home, and by the time we get back, it's time to start planting that kind of stuff in the garden, and I just stick it in the ground.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, back to our discussion of where to put your garden. And we talked about observation.
Yeah.
And here are some of the things that we want to observe and to consider when we're selecting the site for the garden. The first one is the solar aspect, and that is the angle of the sun and how it travels across our properties. Mm-hmm. And in the northern hemisphere, in the wintertime, the angle of the sun is lower in the sky, and it shines from a southerly direction. Mm-hmm. In the summertime, it's very high in the sky and very intense, very direct sunlight. And so that, could be reversed in other parts of the world.
If you're in the lower half of the world, the southern hemisphere, it's the other way around.
You're right. In the wintertime, it shines from a more northern
One of these days, I want to go experience that. Because I've lived my entire life in the northern hemisphere, and I think it would be really cool to go in the winter, well, it would be our summer, to the southern hemisphere and see the different patterns, the way the sun travels across the sky.
Yes,
I think it'd be really cool.
I traveled to Australia in March, and that was very strange to me that it was fall. It's getting to be winter.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's a complete adjustment.
So when placing your garden, mm-hmm. solar aspect is a really important concept.
It is important. It is. If you want to grow food for a long growing season, mm-hmm. place it in a south-facing garden if you're in the northern hemisphere, mm-hmm. or reverse if you're in the southern hemisphere, because then it will get the most amount of sun for the longest length of time during the year. Assuming you don't have something blocking the sun.
Yeah.
You could also put your garden on the east side.
Yep. So east side is an eastern exposure.
Yes.
And that gets sun from sun up until noon. Mm-hmm. And plants particularly like that new, fresh sunlight every day.
Yes, they do. They love that spectrum of light. So the orientation is important. But what if you only have a west-facing orientation? You can still grow. Now, north is not great because in the wintertime, if you plant on the north side of your home, that area might not get any sunlight whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But you just need to go out and observe on your own property and see what's occurring throughout the seasons. Plants do need 6 to 8 hours of sunlight during the day.
Yeah, especially if they're making a fruit or a vegetable.
Yes, but that does not need to be full direct sun mm-hmm. all day long.
Right.
So if they're in part shade and then full sun part of the day, or if they're in dappled shade, mm-hmm. That's like sun that shines through tree branches.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine, but they do need to get some sunlight, whether it's direct, indirect, dappled, or full, for 6 to 8 hours all day long. If you have spots that get quite a lot of shade, you can still grow in those. We are going to cover in a few slides some things that will grow well in shadier locations, but complete, full, total darkness is not going to work very well. Windy locations, you may have a spot on your property where the wind just whips through. Uh-huh. And some plants need some wind. Others do not appreciate it because it can really tear at their leaves and do some damage. So if you have an area where the wind whips through, it might not be an ideal location for your garden, but if that's the only spot you have, you could grow something that likes the wind, like corn. Corn mm-hmm. is wind pollinated. Yep. So you could grow a screen of corn mm-hmm. around the rest of your more tender, sensitive vegetables. Uh-huh. And then the corn would take the brunt of that wind and protect the other vegetables, and it would get the benefit of that pollination.
Nice.
So we can make use of pretty much any spot mm-hmm. on our property as long as it gets some sun.
Right.
So now it's your turn. Take your workbook and open up to the page where you have a blank spot in section 3 to draw a picture of your yard. Go out and observe and draw a map of an aerial view. It does not need to be professional. In fact, this is not very professional, but it's more professional than most
what I've ever done. What I've ever done, yeah.
So just draw an aerial view of your property and include on that your structures, trees, any gardens you might have already. You will want to put some notes about where things are shady or where wind might be occurring, where things are really sunny. Also temperature, you can make some notes about temperature on this page. Anything that you want, you can include, and this will really help you as you are exploring places to put your garden. Just by drawing out a map, you may discover things that you never would have thought of otherwise, and it is really helpful for just brainstorming and thinking about where to put
figuring out
your
what
garden.
goes where. Yeah.
Once you have decided where to grow, now the next question is, what should I grow?
And I always love it when I get the question from somebody, well, what should I grow?
Well, you know, that varies from person to person.
Yep, exactly.
Start simply with something you love to eat.
Absolutely.
Write down 3 or 4 vegetables that you love to eat. And if you'd like to, you could turn to the page in your workbook that has the chart for selecting your vegetables, and that's in section 3 of the workbook. And you could do this even now while we're talking. Write down just a few items that you really love to eat, things that you buy often at the store and that you have seen others growing in your area. Or if you don't know what you've seen growing in the area, talk to other gardeners and find out what grows really easily. And if you start with something that grows easily, you'll have great success. Now, if it's something that's more challenging to grow, that's okay. You could give it a shot if you want to, but just know that it's more challenging. That way, going in, you won't think, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I grow this? Well, no, it's just a challenging thing to grow, and you'll learn by doing that. But do start with some things that are easy to grow as well, so you get success.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that I always like to tell people in this observation part, you know, because people are thinking, oh, okay, I need to go look at my property. I need to observe my property. Go to your neighbors too. Go to people in your neighborhood. Go to, you know, other people that are growing. If there's community gardens, go observe what they're doing, because you're going to learn so much from them as well.
That is absolutely true. We want to plant our vegetables at the right time. So once you know kind of what you want to grow, well, when do you grow it? If you love broccoli, but it's summertime, that would not be the appropriate time to grow broccoli because it likes cold weather. So what I recommend is to get a planting calendar that is specific for your climate or for your area of the world. And you can do that very easily by simply searching on the internet, planting calendar, and then your city or your county. And you will find one. Master gardeners in the United States and Canada publish planting calendars in their regions, and they distribute them freely. And there is a planting calendar, I would guess, probably for just about anywhere in the world if you just look for it. Ask other gardeners what they use, and that'll also give you a good idea to tell you when to plant, because it varies from region to region very, very much. Here we plant tomatoes in January and February, but in Wisconsin, my aunt just planted her tomatoes, and it's May, right? So it's much, much different.
Well, I got news for you. It's June now.
Oh, yes, it's June now. Also, get an understanding of warm season and cool season crops and what likes to grow when the temperatures are hot and what likes to grow when the temperatures are cool and mild. So warm season plants. These are plants that can get really big. They tend to fruit like tomatoes and peppers and eggplants and squash and melons. They also could be things like basil and beans. Love the summer heat. Cool season crops, these tend to produce heads or edible roots. Like broccoli and cauliflower and cabbages, lettuces, kale.
Carrots.
Beets,
parsnips. Turnips.
Those are all cool season crops. So we grow them at different times of the year, and sometimes there's a little bit of overlap with these things, but in general, Some things like warm temperatures, and some things really like the cool temperatures. Also, some plants like shade and some plants like sun. So things that can handle part shade, the winter, the cool season veggies, these crops can handle part shade, and many, many herbs also do not mind some shade cover. So if you have a location that is really shady but does get some sun during the day, then think about some greens, some herbs, some onions, some root vegetables. And in fact, if you're growing cool season crops, you can extend your growing season by giving them some shade as the temperatures begin to warm.
Yeah.
Things that like full sun, these are squash and melons and eggplants, peppers. They love the heat and they love to be in full direct sunlight.
And my eggplants out front are just cruising right now.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be 115 this weekend, and they won't mind one bit, will they? So consider the future as well. Consider how big a plant is going to get.
You always have to do that.
And its growth patterns.
Yeah. If you're going to plant something, go look and do an internet search and say, what's the size of my artichoke going to be? So you know, or this tree on the right is probably I don't know, a mulberry or an ash tree.
This is not a joke.
It is, that's right. It is not a joke. Somebody wasn't thinking.
We see this all over our city, trees that have been planted under power lines, and then the city has to go out and just cut the middle out of them. So we want to make sure that we are planting things appropriately so that we don't have the situation. It happens in homes too, that we can plant something big too close to something else, and then we're having to constantly cut it.
Right, exactly.
Same thing with this picture on the upper left-hand side, these topiary trees. These are pretty little citrus trees, but you know, they don't like to maintain that shape, and they'll fight you on that. So it's not wrong to have them look like this. Just know going in that you're going to have to trim them constantly to keep that shape, and they won't produce very well because they don't like to be that shape. Mint is a very aggressive plant. So in the lower left-hand picture, you can see how this mint plant has just taken over this garden. There's other things trying to grow in there, but the mint is very aggressive. So if you have a plant that you want to grow that's aggressive, you might want to contain it somehow, even just put it in a pot. And so this leads to our next gardening hack, companion planting. In the city, our growing real estate is premium. You know, it's limited. We only have so much space to grow. So we want to produce as much as we can in our small spaces. And companion planting can help us to do that. It mimics relationships found in nature. You know, in nature, when you go for a hike, we don't see plants growing in neat rows with lots of empty space in between. We see things growing all together. Tall things, short things, things that grow wide, things that grow straight up, and they're all just mixed together. And we are learning a lot scientifically about how these plants interact and how they help each other. We don't fully understand it, but when we grow things together, they often will grow better together than they would by themselves. And in the picture here, this is a prime example of a companion planting technique called the Three Sisters Garden. It combines 3 different plants, corn, beans, and squash. Now, corn is a heavy feeder. It likes a lot of nitrogen. So we can plant it with beans, and beans put nitrogen into the soil. They take it out of the air and they stick it in the soil. Yeah, exactly. So the corn gets the nitrogen from the beans, and the beans get the corn to grow up like a trellis. And then we can plant some low-growing squash and melons, and those will cover the soil, help to keep it cool, and help to hold in moisture because corn also needs a lot of moisture. Yeah. All right, so growing them together, we can improve the life of our plants. They will grow healthier, and we get so much more production in a very, very small space. So you might want to Google companion planting and find out all the different ways that you can grow things together.
There's a really great book. It's called carrots love tomatoes. And, you know, it talks all about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing out there.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, this could be a garden hack, but we didn't call it that, but it certainly could be. Growing native and adapted plants. So if you look around in your part of the world, you will see things that grow in nature without any help. They don't need to be fertilized, watered, or attended to in any way, and they just grow and grow. And many of these plants are edible. So if we can get some of those plants on our own properties, then they will grow without us having to do a lot of work to tend them.
Nice.
This is a serious plant. Cereus.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So it is a cactus, and it grows here, you know, without any help. And it makes an edible fruit. In the picture on the bottom, this is a picture of what the fruit looks like when it's split in half. And I don't do anything to this cactus. It just grows.
You just ignore it?
I ignore it. In fact, it loves to be ignored, and it produces fruit twice a year for me. Now, in your part of the world, cacti might not be native.
Yeah.
So there will be other things. So do some research, talk to other gardeners, talk to the master gardeners, and find out what grows natively in your area. And you won't have to tend to them very much. And you will have the added benefit of attracting and giving home and food for native pollinators.
Yep. Perfect.
So now it's your turn. Explore your list of vegetables to discover when to plant them. So get that planting calendar and look for the vegetables that you want to grow, find out when to plant them, how much sun they need, so you can place them in the right spot, and how easy or difficult they are to grow in your area. And if you talk to other seasoned gardeners, they can give you some tips and help you along.
This is worth the price of admission right here.
And you have a chart.
And you have a chart.
In your
That's
workbook
right.
that will help you to organize your information.
Absolutely.
Now we get to soil.
That's a deep subject.
It's a deep subject. Yeah, it's foundational to our gardens.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, the most important garden asset is right under our feet, for sure. And if we pay attention to the life of the soil and the health of the soil, we really don't need to pay so much attention to our plants because they will just grow healthfully as a byproduct of growing in that healthy soil.
Exactly.
So what does soil do for us? Well, this is a beginner list. This is kind of the mechanical things that it does. It anchors the roots and supplies water to the plant. It provides air to plant roots. There's got to be air in the soil. It's got to have a loose enough texture that air can penetrate. And it furnishes minerals for plant nutrition.
Right.
But that is just the beginning of what soil does. Soil is alive. It doesn't look alive, but it's full of life.
It's alive.
It's alive, yes. Healthy soil should be full of healthy life. It should contain some organic matter like compost or mulch. These are things that were once alive, but now are not, and they become food for all of the healthy things that are growing and living in the soil. So we need to look at soil like it is alive, feed it and water it and protect it. And we will discover some ways to do that in the next few slides.
Perfect.
Now let's look at what makes healthy soil. And these are the non-living components of the soil, the minerals, the dirt.
The dirt, yeah, that's what I call it. It's just broken down rock.
Yep, but that contains minerals that plants need.
Absolutely.
Air and water and organic materials. Together these start to form soil. But there is a missing component and probably the most vital component, which is the living component of soil. And the living components are these three things: visible organisms, things that we can see like earthworms, microscopic organisms, things that we can't see like bacteria, and some misunderstood organisms.
You mean like this little guy right here?
Like this little guy. Yeah, you know, people are always asking, what can I do about moles, voles, and gophers?
Right.
Well, they are not our enemies. They are our friends. They dig through the soil. They help to maintain soil texture. They help get air and water down into the soil, and they're breaking down organic matter into nutrient forms. Now, we may not want them in our garden bed directly,
Right.
but when we discover them, we may want to keep them out of the garden, but we don't want to eliminate them completely because they really do a great job for us in the soil. Another misunderstood organism is one that we get questions about quite often.
All the time.
And that is mushrooms.
People send me an email or call me or, oh my gosh, I have mushrooms growing in my yard. How do I get rid of them?
Well,
you don't want to.
You don't want to.
Yeah.
Now, you don't want to eat them.
Right. They're not for eating.
But when you start to see mushrooms popping up in your garden, then you can know that you are doing something right.
Yeah.
You are beginning to foster life in the soil. And most of the fungus that grows in the soil is very healthy and wonderful, mushrooms included.
Absolutely.
So those mushrooms are just a sign that you are doing something right.
Absolutely.
Now, here are some more of the living components. We mentioned visible organisms like worms, but also bugs. Ants crawling in your garden are great aerators, and they're constantly breaking down organic matter.
Big time.
Gophers, we already mentioned those.
Yep.
Then there are microscopic critters in your garden, the bacteria and nematodes. Those are microscopic worms.
Yep.
And protozoa, one-celled organisms, and these are all over, millions and millions of them in your soil, and they help to break down organic materials into nutrient forms that plants can use.
Yeah.
And they also help to protect plants from disease organisms. Then there are the fungi, and one of the best ones to have in our garden is mycorrhizae, mycelia. And this is a sort of fungus that actually forms beneficial relationships with roots. And you can see in this picture of this little pine tree growing in a glass box.
Amazing.
You can see the darker, more pronounced roots growing, and then at the end you see some hazy white, kind of milky looking stuff. That is the mycelia.
Yeah.
And it grows around the plant roots, and it actually attaches to the plant roots, and it helps to deliver nutrient to plants.
Yeah, here's one of the cool things about them. They actually have, there's a beneficial relationship with plants and the mycorrhiza. And what they're doing is they're excreting something to help break down the rock, the minerals in the soil, so that the plants can uptake them. Plus, as you can see from this picture, it extends the roots far, it's an extension of the roots, so they're helping pull in water from farther away.
That's right. And their presence also helps to protect against disease and pests in the soil as well. So, very good friend to have in the soil.
That's amazing.
And that leads us to our garden hack. When I first started planting tomatoes, I went and got some of the chemical fertilizers from the nursery, and I would put that in the planting hole. Well, I didn't know better. Yeah. That's just what you did. But I discovered down the road when I was learning about soil that that can actually damage the soil and damage those living components of the soil. So what was the alternative? Well, I needed to have a really strong, healthy plant without having a lot of, without having to use any chemicals.
Yeah, exactly.
So first thing I learned was to plant my tomatoes deep.
Yep.
So when I have a little tomato transplant that I'm going to put in the garden, it's usually maybe 6 to 8 inches tall, and I will take off the bottom 3 or 4 inches of leaves. I'll just pinch them off carefully so I don't damage the stem. And the reason that I do that is if you feel a tomato stem, they are typically kind of fuzzy.
Fuzzy, man, yeah.
When they're young and small. And so if you plant the tomato deep to the level to which you pulled off of the leaves, it will grow more roots right out of that stem.
Nice.
And so the plant will have a lot more root, which will support a much bigger, healthier plant on the top that we can see, right? So plant your tomatoes deep. And then when I plant, I add a handful of these to the planting hole.
A little bit of voodoo going on here?
This is a little bit of scientific magic.
Okay, good.
Alfalfa pellets, crushed eggshells and a banana peel.
Uh-huh.
So why do I do that crazy stuff? Well, I have goats and sheep and rabbits. So I have alfalfa pellets, lots of them. So I'll just grab a handful of those and throw them in a planting hole because the alfalfa releases nitrogen that the plants need.
Right.
It also has a hormone that spurs growth and helps the plant to resist stress. And planting time can be a stressful time for sure.
Yeah.
So that helps. And also it just, as it breaks down, it feeds the soil and helps the soil texture as well. And it doesn't have to be a pellet. You can do this with alfalfa hay. You can even buy just some ground up alfalfa or just get this at the feed store if you want to. I also add some crushed eggshells. And so I dry the eggshells, I crush them up, I throw them in the planting hole, and that provides some calcium and other minerals that prevent tomato diseases. And one of the most common ones is blossom end rot, and that is cured by the addition of some calcium, which the crushed eggshells slowly release over time. Then the banana peel. That releases potassium and other minerals to the plant to help with its overall health, and also some phosphorus. The eggshells in the banana have phosphorus, which help with producing more blooms, which we need blooms in order to get a tomato.
Right.
So by doing this, I don't have to buy any tomato fertilizer. I just add this when I begin planting. And it's great for the soil.
Yeah. Oh, I love this page. This is my Greg's Healthy Soil Hacks page. I am a big believer that our biggest single jobs as gardeners and urban farmers is to create healthy soil. And so I want to share a few with you. And often I will tell people that I love weeds in my yard. And they kind of cock their head and they kind of get a little funny look on their face. It's like, what? What's that about? And so weeds are pioneer species. They show up first, they mine the soil of minerals, plus they're doing a lot of the heavy work to break up the soil. And then what I do with them is I cut off the top, throw the top, so I basically kill the top, and throw that to the chickens. And then the roots, they just rot right in the ground, adding compost right in the soil.
That is a great benefit of weeds.
Of weeds, absolutely. And some of them are edible, some of them are medicinal. You know, there's multiple weeds that grow in my yard that, you know, we eat. Purslane and dandelions and, yeah, on and on. This next one is a really cool garden that I set up here in town, and it took me less than an hour. And so the story goes like this. Steve, my buddy, calls me about 4 years ago, and he says, Jan would like a garden. And I don't do garden installations anymore, but he's a longtime friend, so I have to, you know, say, okay, send me a picture, I said hesitantly. And so I get this picture, and the garden is on the east side of the house.
Perfect.
Bonus, it's 4 feet wide, 14 feet long. It's got a brick border all the way around it, and it's 4 inches below grade. Oh, plus there's no Bermuda grass growing in it, no noxious weeds growing in it. So all of a sudden I'm doing the happy dance. So we set up a time, I load up my truck, I put 15 cubic feet, so not that much, you know, like a half a bed truck full of what I call, it's a product here in Phoenix that I use called premium potting soil. I arrive at 7 o'clock. By 7:20, I'd unloaded the soil. While I was unloading the soil, she was watering. Jan was watering the garden. Then we spent the next 27 minutes planting. And I packed up and left 47 minutes after arriving. I planted an entire garden for her. That was 4 years ago. And I still get team emails from her saying, oh, my garden's going great, and pictures and so on and so on. And notice I didn't do any digging. This is a lazy farmer coming out at me. I didn't do any digging. There was really nothing to do around that because we let the roots do the work. One of the permaculture principles is just, you know, plug into nature, and roots do the digging for us.
So you put the soil right on top of the native soil.
I did.
And there was a frame there already, but if they didn't have a frame, you could put a frame up pretty fast.
You could put a frame up pretty quick, yeah.
That's easy. No digging required.
No digging required. In fact, one of my healthy soil hack videos is this garden here on the right that I installed. That's my friend Perry, and we installed that garden for her in 2008 at her house, and I videotaped it. So when you get to the end and get the healthy soil hack video series, you'll be able to see me being goofy and showing you how to install that garden right there for less than $100 and less than a day.
So you're being goofy, but you're giving us some really good information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then there's bed sheets in the garden, one of my favorite things. This is worth the price of admission right here. Bed sheets, using bed sheets in your garden. So what's that about? Plant your seeds, start watering them, or plant your seeds and water them. Put a bed sheet on top of it. The bed sheet acts as a top mulch. It holds in the moisture. And then it also keeps the birds and the bugs away.
Wow.
Yeah, you grow it out for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. The plants will let you know when it needs to come off, and you're golden.
That's a great tip.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are some great ones. At the last slide, you'll get the Healthy Soil Hack the video series. Go check that out. There's some really good stuff there.
So now it's your turn. Make sure to spend some time observing your property and draw out your aerial map. Then fill out your veggie selection chart in your workbook. And finally, stick around to the end to get your video series, Healthy Soil Hacked, which will give you all kinds of tips that can get your garden started quickly and also have it be amazingly successful and get better and better over time. With these simple steps, you can jumpstart your garden now and enhance your garden and landscape health. I mean, imagine how beautiful it will be to have food growing all over your yard,
nice.
Or even in just one small space. This will make it easy, and it'll save you money because you'll be growing things that you like to eat and that you buy often at the grocery store, and you'll be doing it successfully. And we can tap together into nature's abundance, which is free and available to all of us.
Yeah, it's really, really important piece of all of this is, just plug into the flows of nature. In fact, a lot of what we teach, pretty much every single class that we teach at Urban Farm U, we're talking about that. That's how important it is.
Yes.
So what's next? You may, want to know what you're feeding your family to make sure it's nutrient-dense food. You may be interested in making sure you have a healthy food supply, a safe food supply, one that's secure, away from the industrial food system. And you might want to know just what's in your food. So we've given you a ton of information, and you might be feeling a bit unsure of where and how to get started, and that's just fine. All this really means is that you have 2 simple choices to make right now. There's the hard choice. Take this information we gave you and try to go it alone. And who knows, you might get lucky. You see some progress. It'll probably take a little longer, of course, and you might make a lot of painful and expensive mistakes. I know, I've done them. And you can make that choice, absolutely. Or there's a smarter choice, one that the savvy urban farmers and gardeners take to speed up their progress toward growing their own food. This is the quickest, fastest, and smartest way possible to achieve growing your own food without wasting a lot of money or time. And here's what I say. Why go this alone when we've already done all the work for you? You just have to jump in and choose. Why even consider starting from scratch? We've already laid out your exact step-by-step blueprint. It's called the Urban Farm System. And the Urban Farm U team has put together a toolbox of resources to make your journey easy and successful. It's really simple. The Urban Farm System is the absolute fastest, easy, and most complete system to get your garden and urban farm growing, saving you time and money while creating an abundant harvest. With this system, we guide you through the process of digging deeper, step by step, to success in growing your own food. Our 7-week course doesn't teach just techniques. We teach you the reasons why they work, so you have a deeper understanding of how to grow food, and that leads to more success. Plus, these gardening techniques, they work anywhere in the world. In fact, we've had people from Australia, from New Zealand, from Europe, from Alaska, all over the United States, from Canada, all different climates, and this stuff really works. So in 7 weeks, you will gain confidence and skills to start growing your own food. You're going to learn to have the convenience of fresh produce growing right outside your door, and you're going to start off right, saving money and time while gaining a lifetime of knowledge that lasts. Remember, once you learn this stuff, you're going to have it forever. So each of the 7 weeks, we have a topic that we cover. In week 1, we talk about sun, where we'll discover the secret behind placing your garden. And that brings success, or it might say why you failed.
Yeah, this can make or break a garden. So we wanted to make the garden. So we're going to give you all the tips that you need to know about the sun to make the most and best use of this abundant and free resource that's available to all of us. And so we'll learn how to place our garden to maximize production and how to turn trouble spots into assets, and even what to do if you have really sunny or really shady spots that are maybe too hot or too cool and shaded you think to grow, but we might actually be able to use them for production.
We can absolutely do that. Absolutely do that. In week 2, we're going to dig deeper to uncover the many layers of soil and why it's your biggest asset and how to make the most of it. And also we're going to talk about how to get it making its own soil, right?
Oh, sure. We're going to learn how to compost here and other techniques that create healthy soil. We'll start with just what kind of garden do you want, and cover different kinds of gardens so that you can select the right one for you. We'll learn what kind of soil you might already have right there in your yard and how to make it better. And then the goal is to help you to create healthy soil that boosts production so that it gets better year after year after year.
Isn't that cool? And that is possible. So in week 3, we're going to talk sprinklers, and we're really not going to talk sprinklers, are we? Well, we will a little bit, but we're talking water. And we're going to dive in and take the mystery out of watering your garden.
Right, because watering is another thing that can really make or break the garden. And watering mistakes are costly. They kill the plants and also can be really costly to our wallet if we're paying for city water. So we want to avoid those common watering mistakes, which we've made, so we'll tell you what they are and how to avoid them. We'll learn exactly how much and how often to water, so you can figure that out for what you're growing. And different types of watering systems and even some water harvesting methods.
Nice. Nice. Then in week 4, we're going to unpack the mystery timing to grow better, faster, and longer. That kind of sounds like the $6 Million Man, doesn't it?
Well, we're going to give you $6 million tips to make the most of the season, however long your growing season is. These tips will help you to grow more during that season, to grow longer, and to really maximize however many days you have to grow in your part of the world.
Nice. And then in week 5, we're going to discover how growing your own seeds makes it easier to plant a garden that overflows with abundance. This is really cool.
Well, seeds are where the magic really happens. So we'll unpack seed types. There's a lot of confusing information out there about those. And we'll talk about transplants as well, and how to plant seeds, how to plant transplants, how to use them together to maximize your harvest, and even some simple ways that you can use seed saving to begin to develop your own varieties that are well adapted to your climate and to your own yard, as well as to just your preferences.
That actually really works. I have a drought-tolerant basil in my backyard. Gets water every 2 weeks, and it comes back year after year. It's really magical.
And it gets better and better every year, doesn't it?
It gets better and better every year. Then in week 6, we're going to reveal the magic of using what you already have to make your garden prosper.
Yeah, well, you know, plants need some sustenance. They need food, and they need some health care. But we don't have to do it with a lot of product. We can do it with things natural and pantry alternatives, things that we already have. We'll also talk about the specific nutrients that plants need and what they do for the plants, so you know which nutrient to use at which stage of life to help your plants to produce better. We'll we'll talk about integrated pest management, which is a way that you can deter pests in your garden without using any kind of a spray.
Yep.
And we'll also dive deeper into companion planting.
So to kind of give you a hint about what some of this might look like, we talked about tomatoes earlier, and I see eggshells and banana peels here. So those are the kinds of things we're looking at, and we have all kinds of that stuff in our space.
Yes, we do. It's already available to us.
Yeah. So in week 7, and this is a really important one, we will explore how to make the most out of your abundant harvest. So right now, Heidi and I are harvesting tomatoes as fast as we can, and we're giving them away as fast as we can, and we still have a super abundance of them. And if you don't have a system in place to manage them when they arrive, they just go bad. And I've been guilty of, stuff rotting on the countertop.
Well, sure. What we found in our own gardening experience and in that of our students is that once we learn all these principles and we put them into action, we start to get so much abundance that sometimes it's hard to know what to do with it all. So we put together this section specifically to address that problem, which isn't really a problem at all. It's actually a really great benefit.
Bonus, yeah.
And so if we can do a little bit of planning and have some preservation methods handy so that we know what to do when the harvest comes in, then we can have food on our pantry shelves all year long that we grew ourselves.
So what we're doing with a lot of those tomatoes right now is we're dehydrating them. We dehydrate them, I stick them in a jar, and then we pull them out and cut them up so they're sun-dried-ish and put them in pastas, and they're so good that way.
They are, and that's one of the methods that we'll cover in the class.
Dehydrating, yeah, exactly. So the simple yet effective urban farm system, it's going to work for you even if you think you have a black thumb. I'll tell you what, I get this all the time. People say, I have a black thumb, I can't grow anything.
Well, a black thumb, I think, is just a thumb that hasn't been to school or that lacks experience.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so if you don't have the time or think you don't have the time, here at the Urban Farm, I have 14,000 square feet, and we're growing lots of food here. And I spend 2 hours a week in the yard. I think I mentioned that earlier. And we're harvesting a lot of food here, and in big part because I'm doing the permaculture thing here. We're, working in the flow of nature, and nature's handling a lot of this stuff. Plus, if you think you have a limited budget, it is so easy to grow herbs in a windowsill. And interesting story real quick here. My friend Margaret lived in a condo. I wrote an article about her a few years back. In fact, if you search the internet, Margaret the Condo Garden, the article's out there. And she lived in a condo and was walking the neighborhood one night and saw a garden in somebody's yard, and she went and knocked on Meg's door and said, "Can I garden in your garden?" She had a ready-made garden right there. So those are the kinds of tips that we share with you, and it didn't take her budget very much, and she was able to grow lots of food. It was so cool to see all the stuff that she was growing. And what's really cool are all the people that are jumping on board the Grow Your Own Food bandwagon. This guy showed up on my doorstep about 1.5 years ago. This is singer-songwriter Jason Mraz. He's from San Diego. And one of the things he says he likes is the lazy farmer concept, or the lazy gardener concept. So he's not a slave to his garden. And he's got 10 acres with avocados and coffee plants and an epic kitchen garden. And he has applied a lot of these things to his garden, and it's working for him.
This is our urban farmer, Kat, who just finished our recent gardening unearthed course. Yeah. And we so enjoyed having her and all of our students in class that she said, Greg and Kari's class far exceeded my expectations. It was comprehensive and presented in a very organized format. I love all the extra resources presented, which we do spend a lot of time and thought to put together those resources for you. She says, having never done an online webinar before, I wasn't certain about the format, but came away very pleased. And I loved that I can attend class live or watch it as a recording, which is a really great feature. I am 100% satisfied with Gardening Unearthed. Thank you so much, Kat. And I am excited about what is going to happen in your space as you apply these principles and grow lots of food.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. I knew you were listening out there tonight. She said she'd be on the webinar. So, and then there's urban farmer Erin. She says, my husband and I harvest something out of our garden almost every day. Gardening has revolutionized our life. She said that. And I'll tell you from personal experience, there's nothing better than harvesting part or all of a meal right from your own yard.
She took the class 2 years ago, and I still occasionally hear from her. She tells me what she's doing.
Yeah, you know, it's nice when students, give us that positive feedback, on and on and on. So my vision, well, it's really our vision, and it's a cause that I'm inviting you to join, along with millions of others around the world who are already transforming our global food system from the bottom up. This is a mission that has lived for me since the 1970s, and I am blessed to be able to share it with the world every day. By joining our cause, you can feed your family healthy, nutrient-dense food, build your own local food system that you can depend upon, set yourself apart from the global food system, and most of all, experience the success of growing great tasting food.
And it does taste better out of the garden.
Yeah. So a few decades ago, I started this cause to transform our food system, and here's why. Our industrial food system is broken, and it produces food that is full of chemicals and lacking in nutrition. And I believe that there are 3 things in our culture that cause 100% of our disease. And all 3 of these we can address by growing our own food. And I've actually checked this with 2 MDs and a nutritionist with a master's degree, and they all agreed. First, it's lack of nutrition in our food. It's been proven over and over again that the soil that the industrial food system farms is depleted of the micronutrients that we need for healthy food.
And then when it sits around on the grocery store shelves, it loses nutrition moment by moment.
Moment by moment. That's another really important thing. The second is environmental toxins. Our food is full of chemicals, pesticides, and GMOs. And third, stress. And the cool thing about gardening is that it addresses all 3 of these. So when you grow your own, you know what you put in it, you know what you put on it, and gardening has been proven to reduce stress. So by joining our cause, you can transform your health by growing your own food. Plus, growing your own is very fulfilling and a lot of fun. I planted my first garden in 1975 here in Phoenix. I was 14 and I figured it out. Since then, I have dedicated my life to teaching people just like you to do the same thing. In fact, between you and I, we've taught probably tens of thousands of people around Phoenix and around the globe. Wouldn't you say, Kari?
Yes, if we counted.
Yeah, if we counted, exactly. So the urban farm system is the culmination of those decades worth of work, and it's all in one place. And the good news is we've packaged those decades of experience so that we can bring it to you at a much lower price than the hard knocks that Kari and I paid. Because frankly, I want you to join my cause, and I refuse to let finances get in the way. Because of my dedication, you'll not be paying the retail value of over $3,000 for the urban farm system. No, you're going to pay just a fraction of that. And the good news is that your investment today for the urban farm system, plus all the bonuses that we have for you, that's really up to you. So we have 2 courses that we're offering today. We have our VIP course. It's a payment of $597, and our standard course, one payment of $297. Our standard course includes our 7-week live gardening unearthed webinar, recorded for playback later, access to our private Urban Farm View Facebook group, 2 bonus books, Composting Made Easy. That's one that you wrote, Kari.
Yes, I love composting so much that I wrote a book about it.
And a book I wrote called Grow Wherever You Go, and that explores all the awesome, incredible, crazy, different places if you don't have a yard that you could actually grow. Plus, there's a live Q&A session in each class. We do that every time so that we get all your answers.
Yes, and that's a very fun and valuable part of the class.
But I'll tell you what, if you want better results faster, go with the VIP program. So, oh, there's a picture of you, Kari. So on top of our standard course, the VIP course includes access to our all-new membership program, which is going to, among other things, include a monthly member-only webinar. So we're going to bring experts in. I've already started collecting them. It's pretty cool. And we're going to have them come in and talk about the different topics that are available out there on virtually everything and anything. It's also going to be 3 VIP-only group coaching calls to review and brainstorm some member properties. And you had a name for this, Kari.
Well, when we do this with the Master Gardeners, we call it Design Charrette, and it gives the person whose property is being brainstormed a lot of benefits, but also everyone who attends learns a whole lot and gets practice and learns skills that they can take home and use on their own properties.
Nice, nice. And we do that with Google Earth and pictures of the properties. It's really valuable. Plus, the VIP program includes 3 webinars on fruit trees, one of my favorite things to talk about.
And chickens, which is one of my favorite topics for sure.
And one on water harvesting, which that's a really good one too. Plus it includes access to the Grow Phoenix Summit video set. That's either 10 or 12 videos on aquaponics and advanced growing, and you have
livestock.
You did one on livestock,
Yeah. All kinds of topics. We had several hundred people come together, and we just learned all about growing food that day, and we're sharing that with you in the VIP package.
Perfect. So to join our community of urban farmers and improve your family's health, simply click on the link that we just pasted in your GoToWebinar chat box. We pasted that, right? It's in there. Great. Cool. It's urbanfarm.org/join. So the thing is, you don't really have to decide right now. You can try this one on me for 30 days. Hey, even if you don't like the way I look, are not 100% satisfied in every way, I'll be glad to refund your purchase price. No hassles, no worries, and we'll part as friends no matter what, I promise. And I'll tell you what, we have a special for you tonight. If you join my cause in the next 15 minutes, you're going to receive a fast action bonus, the Ultimate Patio Farming Webinar. Can you tell us about that, Kari?
Yeah, this is one of our most popular classes. Every time we offer it, it fills up, and we just give you loads of tips and step-by-step information to be able to grow food in containers and have a patio farm right outside your door.
So, Heidi, my sweetie, this is our front porch at the Urban Farm. I promise you, it didn't look like this when Heidi didn't live here.
She is really good at growing in containers.
Epic. And most of that is edibles, or, well, it's flowers as well, too. Plus, we're going to add these super bonuses worth thousands of dollars, absolutely free. The first bonus is Jumpstart Your Urban Farm. This is a 4-session self-study course designed to ground you in the principles of permaculture and urban farming. Jumpstart Your Urban Farm gets you familiar with theories and processes to gain a greater understanding of how to work with nature. In session 1, we're going to dive into an alternative to sustainability that takes it much deeper, and you will discover why this is the most important conversation we need to be having right now. In session 2, you're going to discover what permaculture is and the simple process to designing your yard into a farm. In session 3, you're going to learn how to transition your yard into an urban farm, discovering what it takes to be an urban farmer and how to plug into your local food economy. That's a really fun conversation as well. Plus, we're going to distinguish what is next for you and hopefully have you take a stand to move forward. Plus, we have 2 bonus live webinars right off the bat. Introduction to Urban Farming, this live webinar. You're going to understand what it means to be an urban farmer and how to become one. The 3 simple steps to set your path to urban farmerhood, that's one of the words we made up, urban farmerhood, and what regenerative is and why it is so important to the future of your family and our planet. Your second bonus webinar is our Edible Landscape Design class, where you will discover how to easily transform your landscape from one that is not productive to one that can help feed your family. You're going to understand why our mantra is never plant anything you can't eat. Oh, I got a little ahead of myself. Sorry about that. Plus, the 4 most important things to know to begin to your transformation from a yard that you can't eat to breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And you gave this away.
And I kind of gave this away already too. But our friend Wardy up at Traditional Cooking School, she's up in the Oregon area, she threw in this bonus for us. This is about $100 value. It's her sourdough A to Z ebook and video package. It includes all kinds of great information on why sourdough and how sourdough. So that brings the total value of the urban farm system to well over $3,000. Remember, you're not just saving thousands of dollars today, though. You're also starting your own path to better health, less toxins in your food, and urban farming success. So why wait? You know that this path can change your life and make a difference for your family and friends. So here's what's going to happen the moment you head over to the urbanfarm.org join site. First, you'll be taken to our 100% secured checkout page, which looks like this. You'll have your two choices. Make one choice, and you're going to get this. And the next thing to do, if you click checkout, you're going to be able to pay with your credit card. Or if you click PayPal, you're going to be able to pay with your credit card or your PayPal account. And once that's done, you're going to arrive at our secure member area. And this is where we share all of the goodies and all your class times. You're going to have access to the bonus content that we talked about, weekly class notes, videos, PDFs of all the incredible bonus content that we deliver with the course. So it's that simple. So if you've been thinking about growing your own food and want to take the fast track to success, click the link in the go-to webinar chat box, urbanfarm.org/join. So you've probably been struggling with getting a healthy food for far too long. But taking action now, simply applying the step-by-step principles found in the urban farm system, you can solve this and positively impact the health of your family by growing your own healthy, nutrient-dense food. Imagine right now how it would feel the moment you know you finally found your answer to healthy food. You're loving the independence of the urban farm lifestyle. That's what we call it here, and you'll get our weekly newsletter all about that, and you're enjoying every second of it. You're experiencing the healthy family you've been seeking at long last. However, today marks a day for you to take responsibility and take the action you know is necessary to put you on track for real results using a system that simply works. Try the urban farm system for 30 full days on me, and if you're not completely satisfied, you'll pay nothing. Remember, you're going to be receiving our Gardening Unearthed webinar, access to the private Urban Farm U Facebook page, 2 bonus books, Composting Made Easy, Grow Wherever You Go, an in-depth sheet mulching video, plus live Q&A in each session. Plus our bonuses are Jumpstart Your Urban Farm, this 4-session self-study course, your Introduction to Urban Farming and your Edible Landscape Design live webinar, plus live Q&A after every webinar. So don't just put it off for 1 second longer. And here's why. You're only eligible for your fast action bonus if you sign up now. And as you recall, I lowered the price of the urban farm system for you by over 80% just so you can join our cause. However, the special launch discount will return back to normal very soon, where it deserves to be. So you must act now before the price changes. And unless you take action right now, you may never take this opportunity to improve your life and learn to grow. So don't do what so many others do by putting it off, saying, oh, maybe next month or next year. Then that turns into never. It's no longer even a question, really, of that you want this. The urban farm system is what you need, and all you have to do is just take the action to get it done. It's the only smart thing that you can do. Take advantage of this limited time offer before it's too late. Lock down your discount price before this launch special ends by clicking the link in your webinar chat window. There we have it.
And as promised, here is your link to
Healthy
Healthy
Soil.
Soil Hacks.
Yeah, go to healthysoilhacked.com. It was a little slow earlier today during our first webinar, so just be patient. If you get there and it doesn't work, then try again in a little while.
Yeah, because
we had a lot of people downloading it.
Yeah.
So, thoughts? We have some questions, I believe, as well.
Yeah, we've got some great questions.
Oh my gosh, here they are. This is from Patricia. What is the best way, oh my gosh, what is the best way a 59-year-old lady with no help, an RA, to be able to grow her own food?
Well, maybe we answered that question in the webinar
we absolutely
already.
Did.
But, you know, growing a no-dig garden might be one way,
yep.
Or growing some food in containers could be another great way to grow some food that would be easy on your body and not too taxing. And just you'll be able to grow a whole lot of food without having to go out and put in a lot of heavy lifting. All right.
Yeah. So this has come in from Helen. She said, my husband and I bought a house, and the #1 priority is an urban garden. Yay, Helen. We have all rock. What is your first suggestion? So my first suggestion is a freebie. Go to healthysoilhack.com and watch my Perry's Instant Garden video. She had all rock in her backyard. We raked it back, and in less than a day, and for less than $100, we installed an epic garden that, you know, here we are 8 years later, she's getting groceries out of.
Right, and that's what we did in our front yard gardens. We just raked back the rock and put the garden bed frames just right on the soil, and we will eventually get rid of all the rock because it gets very, very hot. But that was a way for us to get started right away without having to move tons and tons of rock, you know, right up front.
Yeah, exactly. So Andrew says, I live in Lower Blue Mountains in Sydney, Australia. Welcome to the webinar from Australia. The area has rich soil in sandstone and clay. My lemon and lime trees are struggling. I want to plant more veggies, but need to understand how to improve my soil. I understand it may have something to do with the pH levels.
It may. If you have a lot of clay in your soil, the pH level might be quite high, and lemons like a more neutral pH. So you might be wanting to just if you focus on creating healthy soil and adding organic matter, that's going to help to neutralize the pH somewhat. It could have something to do with temperature too. They don't like cold at all. I don't know what your temperatures are like there, but definitely if it is a pH issue, just continuing to promote healthy soil will help to buffer that high pH so that your lemon trees can thrive better.
Yeah, and one of the things I found over and over again over the decades is the more organic material you add, the more normalized the pH in your soil gets. In fact, check out our buddy Jake Mace. He's the vegan athlete on YouTube, and check out what he's done with wood chips. He had a dirt backyard 5 years ago, and he's added a foot of wood chips, by the way, which are free, to his backyard, and he's created a jungle in his backyard.
Yeah, it's outstanding.
Yeah, it's really cool. Nemi says, love your stories. Thank you so much, Nemi. Maria says, I live in Indiana. Temps in the winter drop 10 to 30 degrees. Is that 10 to 30 degrees? Probably. Is there anything she can grow here? Probably not in the
wintertime.
Probably not in the winter.
Without a greenhouse, it might be challenging. However, you could, when your garden beds are dormant in the wintertime, plant some carrots in there. That'll help to keep the soil life active, because a lot of the soil microbes that we're trying to promote, they really need plants. They've got to have a relationship with plants. If the plants are gone, then they go away too.
Right.
So in the wintertime, put some carrots in there and cover it with a bunch of straw to keep it kind of warmer underneath there. And that way, in the springtime when you uncover it, you got carrots and you got your soil all ready to grow as soon as the temperatures begin to warm up.
Nice. Also from Maria, how to care for soil in containers and raised bed gardens. Do we change the soil out, or do we add anything to it?
Well, I don't really like to change the soil out in my containers because it's a lot of work. I will occasionally, you know, if I just notice that it's getting funky in that container.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I just add compost to the top of the soil. You'll notice that your container soil will sink down over time. So you can just add some fresh compost to the top of it, and that will help to keep the soil life active in those containers. And in raised beds, I don't change the soil.
Yep.
I just dress the top with compost and with mulch.
Add more every year. Absolutely. It's really curious about how the life in the soil that we talked about earlier on, it kind of regenerates the soil.
Yes, it does. And when we actually dig in there and take soil out to replace it with some new soil, we're actually turning over the cities that those the
soil microbes
and fungus have created underneath the soil. So we really don't want to disturb them. We just dress the top with additional compost and mulch.
Yeah. Selena says, can you plant more than one herb in a pot?
Certainly.
Oh my gosh.
They love to grow together. So just pick ones that like similar temperatures and similar watering habits and put those together, and that's just great. Herbs grow really well around your other garden plants as well.
Absolutely.
Tomatoes and basil.
Oh yeah.
Perfect combination.
Oh yeah. In fact, I have an oregano that kind of grows in a wild space in my yard, and I use a hedge trimmer on it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. It says, hi, Greg. I love the idea of just a couple of hours of work a week. Could you tell me how long it took you to get to that point? Drum roll, or maybe not. Well, I've lived here for 27 years. With what I know now, if I was moving back into this space, it would probably take me 18 months to 3 years. But the last 27 years has been this epic learning process for me, and so it took longer. But with the learning that I have, yeah, I could definitely, in fact, I've thought about moving to another place and taking on a project like this. And it would probably take, in that case, with a nice plan, I could probably put the infrastructure in 3 months, working 10 to 20 hours a week, and then the system has to cure, or it has to, develop. Ferment was the other word I was going to, really get in a good space. Diana says, what was the name of the book Greg mentioned about companion planting?
Carrots Love Tomatoes.
Yeah, it's a great book, and just type it into Amazon or buy it. Better yet, buy it from a local bookstore. So Rita says, my weeds grow back. They don't rot. So
that can happen with some kinds of weeds.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, if you're talking about Bermuda grass, or that's one of ours here, Bermuda grass and nutgrass, those are noxious weeds. You can't pull them up. You have to dig them out, and you have to be persistent with them. The kinds of weeds that I'm talking about are purslane, mallow.
Now you cut them off below the soil line.
And that's the other thing. You have to cut them off below the soil line.
Because if anything's sticking out, they can have access to the sun and regenerate.
Exactly, exactly. So here's a hack for you. One of my favorite tools in my yard. It's about a 6-inch long carpet cutting knife that you buy at the hardware store. The handle on it's about 4 inches, and the blade is a curved blade about 2 inches long. It is perfect for taking the top off of weeds. And it's nice and durable, and so go get one of those. It works really, really great. Let's see here, more questions. Can you talk about how to keep birds off of mature fruits and veggies? Yeah, pick them quick.
Well, like tomatoes, I cover those with tulle netting, which is wedding veil material. But, if you've got a big tree, you may not be able to keep those birds off. You can try to put a bird net over the top of the tree, but boy, that can be just a mess. So in my yard, we just try to grow enough that we have a little bit to share with our big plants. With our smaller plants, sure, we cover them with some tulle netting. If they are something that needs pollination by bees, then you kind of have to remove the netting when the bees are active in the morning, but then you can go put it back on and keep the birds off.
Oh yeah. Well, in some plants like tomatoes, you just shake them. They're self-fertile.
to
so,
fertilize,
yeah.
yeah.
They'll just fertilize themselves. Amy says, some people say to plant corn with pole beans, but I find that hard to believe. I think the pole bean would choke out the corn.
Well, no, it actually doesn't. I actually will plant 2 pole beans on 1 stalk of corn, and it works just fine. Yeah, but give it a try and see how it works for you.
All right.
You could always place a few trellises in that garden as well if you want to plant more than you think that the corn could support, for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love this one. Mercedes says, I live in a micro loft downtown Los Angeles with 1 window facing southwest. Can I have an herb garden in these conditions?
Well, you are fortunate that you have a south-facing window.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, grow some herbs and maybe even try some other things in that window.
You know, there's a really cool product out there that's called a tower garden. I own a tower garden. I have 1/3 of an acre here at the Urban Farm, and I own a tower garden. And the tower garden is a Juice Plus product, so it's from Juice Plus, and it's a 20-gallon bucket of water basically at the bottom of a 6-foot tall tower, and you plant your vegetables and herbs all the way up the tower in the holes in the side of it, and then the water is pumped from the basin at the bottom up to the top, and the water trickles down through the tube that these plants are in, and basically what you get is this edible Christmas tree looking thing. It is so incredibly cool. There's no soil involved. It's a hydroponic system, and you just put nutrients in the water. So, you know, for something like that, you know, a southwest facing window, that could be absolutely perfect.
You could certainly grow a whole lot of food in a small space using a tower garden or any other type of vertical gardening technique in that window.
Yeah. Rachel says, is this 7-week information suitable for tropical countries?
Yes, it's suitable
Absolutely.
for any climate.
Yeah, absolutely. And because we don't teach you specific things.
We teach you the broad principles that you can apply anywhere, and then the specific techniques are things that you'll discover along the way and are just ways to apply the principles.
Yeah, exactly. And there are specifics that we do share, but we really try and do a good job of making sure that we're getting you the principles so that you understand what they are. What do you think about using peat moss?
Well, there are upsides and downsides to peat moss. Peat moss is a really fantastic amendment for garden soil. Helps to buffer pH, and it holds water fantastically. However, it is not very sustainable because so many people are into gardening now that we are harvesting it faster than it can grow back in the peat bogs. So if you have some on hand and you already have it, use it. It is great. If you don't have it, then you might want to look at an alternative, and one of the great alternatives is coconut coir, which is just ground up coconut husks, and it does basically the same job that the peat moss does, but it is it's a lot more abundant.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think about a garden during the winter? How do you protect it from the rain? Well, it depends. Gardening in the winter here in Phoenix, Arizona, it's a slam dunk. That's the best time to garden.
And we don't protect it from the rain because we want the rain.
On it.
However, if you have freezing rains, then you would need to make a little hoop house, perhaps, where you could just put some PVC or rebar arches over the garden and put some heavy-duty plastic over it to help keep the garden a little warmer and to keep the driving, freezing rain off.
Yeah. Karen says, do you save seeds from this year's plants for next year? And if so, how do you do that? I'm going to start, hold it here, I'm going to start here. Kari was just like all over it. I'm going to start real quick. First of all, in August, we have an upcoming free webinar specifically about this, a seed saving webinar. There are so many ways. There's a dry method, there's a wet method. So it really depends, Karen, what kind of seeds we're talking about. Tomato seeds, shall we talk about those real quick?
Yeah, those are wet seeds.
Those are wets.
And they're real easy to harvest, so you can just take a nice ripe tomato and leave it sitting on your counter for a few days. You could put it in a bucket and just let it kind of go yucky
Go, yeah,
in
go
the
Yuckies,
bucket,
that's good.
which is basically just it breaks down and starts to ferment,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then once that occurs, then you can remove the seeds. And
Yeah, it usually takes 2 or 3 days,
yeah,
and you just rinse it. So you put water in, and the seeds that sink are the ones that are good.
right. And the
The ones
seeds that float are not developed enough.
Not developed enough, yes. Leslie says, thank you both for a really informative webinar. It was worth staying up for.
Oh, fantastic.
Cool.
And
Thank you for that.
I do want to mention, right from the last question, that
Mm-hmm.
we were going to talk a lot about seed saving and,
Oh,
and
yes.
harvesting in the Gardening on Earth class.
That's week 5, I think. Week 5. All right. I think we're done. There are a few more questions out here. If we didn't get to your question, apologize about that. But thank you so much for joining us. And I just want to point you back to urbanfarm.org/join. Oh, here, let me see. Go there. And, you know, really look in your heart. Is this something that would transform your life? I believe it is. I'm deeply committed every day to sharing with people how to grow their own food. And I know that the people that are in my courses and the people that are in Kari's courses and the Urban Farm U courses, they get their life out of these classes that they're taking.
Certainly, and we look so forward to spending well, actually more than 7 weeks
Yep.
with you all and just helping you along in your journey.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to us.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. There's still hundreds of you on this call, and I just have to say that moves me. Real quick story before we end. I'm one to tell stories. So on a really good day, if I'm lecturing live, I might get to talk to 20 or 30 people. On a really good day like today, we've talked to over 1,500 people in these 2 webinars. We did one earlier today. And that warms my heart because I know that I'm sharing with people what I think is the most important thing that we can be doing right now. So I hope that keeps you motivated and go out and do something about it.
Greg, you always say,
Farm out.
farm out.
Thanks for joining us.